Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Cone Dodger here. Welcome to part number 3 of the 2020 Dodge Viper Build-Off Contest in BeamNG and Automation. This is Title Guy 1's entry to the contest for the 10-year-old wow factor part of this challenge. We are back here in the studio. I don't know, this is like the Automation headquarters or whatever. I look at them from this distance because I think it's a good, like, say you're a kid in a building and you see the cars in the street going by, and that's the angle we're seeing this from. This entry doesn't have the crazy arrow or track ready appearance. However, it does have some things on it that seem to be pretty attention grabby. Now, if we get a little closer, you can see it's not. I wouldn't say it's overflowing with fixtures by any means, but it has some aggressive features to it that are helping. These very large side pipes and mostly the rear treatment. There's some funny business going on with the fixtures there, but we'll ignore that for the most part. But the back is quite intricately designed. Lots of carbon fiber throughout, and cool taillight design, the diffuser arrangement, the taillight arrangement, all of that. It's pretty attention grabby. The front, though, is not quite as attention grabby. I would say the sides are pretty aggressive, the back's pretty aggressive, but as an overall design from the front and just from a distance, it's not the most wow-inspiring of the entries we've seen. Some good parts and some parts that maybe make this more of a sleek and classy looking car, which could help it on in the later parts of the challenge. But for the wow factor, I'm going to give this one, I think I'm going to give it a 5 because the back works, but kind of the front doesn't for that. Yeah, I feel comfortable with a 5 for the wow factor. And I do think this design can make up for it in other areas. Alright, now let's discuss legacy. Does this look like a Viper? Does it look like it's a car that comes from the previous Viper generations? The shape is right. The rear is very right. This is, especially the last generation, definitely has that look as though it comes from the same family. The front is interesting, though. I think the front is one of the most varying from tradition front ends that we've seen so far. However, it's a very cool front end. I love the treatment of the scoops down the hood. It looks very cool from the hood and would look very cool from the driver's seat. Coming down the street, though, if this was approaching you, I don't think you would think Viper at all. Once it passed you and went flying by you and then spun around into a tree, then you would realize it's a Viper, but only then. The side works pretty well. There's some Viper treatment there. The rear taillight, like I said, the taillights themselves are very Viper, but also the third brake light, that's a nice touch. Something that's, kind of a throwback to previous designs. It's the front that really kind of lacks in those design elements. So legacy-wise, I think this one's going to fall a little bit short. Giving it some points for the rear treatment and the nice touch of the third brake light. But I think the best I can do is a 2. Alongside of that, we then have the timelessness of the design. And this is a design that is, like I said, it's a sleek design. It's a little bit more classy than some of the maybe more flamboyant designs of the concepts here. It is very modern looking. It has kind of these sharp elements that you see like Honda using on the NSX and Lexus using on their cars, that I think maybe will date it to some degree, but not terribly. The shape is good. The use of fixtures like the vents and the scoops and whatnot, some of them maybe are not as tastefully done as they could be. I think the front is mostly timeless. The rear is pretty timeless. The side profile, the quarter shots of the car are where it kind of looks of a car of an era. Another tough one. The the treatment of the side pipes is very extravagant, and I think very good for the wow factor. Not so great for the timelessness of it. Why do I have such a hard time remembering that word? I came up with the word. Yeah, I don't think I'm gonna give it huge marks on timelessness either. Yeah, it's not overly extravagant. I think I'll go with a 3. Yeah, I think I'll go for a 3. Alright, so now we need to talk about the drivetrain. And here's that cool look out the hood like I talked about earlier. This is a pretty cool shot here, and it, I imagine from the inside would look pretty awesome as well. So, how about the drivetrain? First off, how plausible is it? Okay, so this is, as you saw on the screen, it is a V10. It is 7 liters, so a little smaller than previous generations, and it now features dual overhead cam, 4 valves per cylinder, and direct injection. So this is a modernized, maybe de-stroked and cleaned up version of the old Viper V10. It's very plausible. That's something that I think is a feasible goal. I don't know if it's something that's going to happen, but I think we would all like it to happen. It really is an engine, a drivetrain that could use some modernizing. They keep throwing displacement at it to get power out of it instead of trying to modernize it. And I do think it would really help the Viper's long-term legacy as a car. Wow, okay. Well, we just learned something about this car. Wow. That's the first time this has happened. I do think it would help the long-term legacy of the Viper if we could refine its V10 and make its V10 into a feature rather than an oddity. You know, that's kind of where I would go with that. It is a 6-speed manual transmission. It is rear-wheel drive. It's a, you know, aluminum or steel monocoque with carbon fiber. So it's very Viper, extremely Viper. So I'm actually going to give this one a 9 in plausibility, which I think is the highest I've given so far. And yeah, it's, like I said, it's just extremely plausible. If the Viper is going to continue basically as it was. Of course, I'm sure you can read the writing on the wall now. If it's going to be that plausible and it's that tied to previous generations, is it very creative? Not particularly. The idea of de-stroking it, or just making it a smaller V10, as well as making it rev happy. You know, this has an 8,600 RPM redline, and overall just acting more like an exotic engine than the previous generation Viper engines. It is a nice idea, and it's not the old Viper V10. I think that would be the least creative option if you just used an 8.3 liter overhead valve V10. Then yeah, that's not extremely creative. But this one does stray a little bit from there, so it's gonna save some points, but just a 3. Okay, so I think we already know the answer to the next question, which is, how does it do in the Darwin check? Well, just going at cruising speeds up the hill, it pretty much gave me all the information I needed to know. Forgot to put the gauge cluster on. And let's just confirm that at this point. I probably don't even really need to go down to first gear. Yep, this one's probably the first one since I drove mine that absolutely aces the Darwin check. But let's make sure that it is actually that crazy. So we can do some spirited driving with it here. Yeah, it's drivable. I think part of Darwin check for me is the car actually drivable? Like, is it just so wild that you can't control it at all? Because that's not really the same thing. It needs to be a car that you can drive, but it's not there to keep you from doing things that you shouldn't do. And oh nope, this car. Ooh, how did we miss? Oh, we didn't miss that one. This car definitely scores pretty well there. Wow, it handled that telephone pole like a champ. Okay, well now we're gonna bring it over to the handling course and see how it do. Oh, that was a 10, by the way, in case you were wondering. Definitely a 10. Alright, let's hit the handling track and see how it do. How it do. I got ESC on, because I feel like I'm going to need it. From what I can tell, though, just driving it around, this car is very oversteery. Even with ESC on, it seems like it's having a hard time getting the power down. I don't know exactly why that is. This is not the most powerful car that we've had, 700 horsepower. But 700 horsepower is no joke. That's not a small number. Yeah, I think you can tell that it's really struggling to get the power down. It's basically on stability control, traction control, all the time. Was able to get itself slowed down once it did find speed. With stability control, oh, I was about to say it, and it proved me wrong. I was gonna say that it's generally drivable, but honestly, it tips the scale. It's a car that I just would not feel comfortable bringing out to a track like this. You would have to drive here. Let me drive like 50% here. Let me just drive like it's a loner and I wanted to have some fun for the day. And I didn't feel comfortable wrecking it. Yeah. Even now, it wants to try and get away from me, so yeah. I mean, there's fun. I'm having fun, but it's scary fun. It's the, I'm pretty sure I'm going to bend this thing fun. And look, I'm keeping it in 3rd gear too. I'm way out of the power band. We caught a little bit more air that time. It's an important feature of a Viper, apparently, as we've learned. This car actually reminds me a lot of back when I first was doing some testing of the automation test track for the BeamNG and automation dev teams. Kilrop made a car and was given to me as an example to drive around, and I said, you know, this is great and all, but I can't tell you anything about the track because this car scares me. This car, pretty similar to that. Pretty similar. Yeah, I think it's not ultimately undrivable. I am driving it. ESC is mandatory. I guarantee you, now that I've turned it off, I will wreck this thing immediately. Keep it off the wall. Nice. Yeah, I think we're gonna give it a 1. Might do better on the big track. Might do better on the big track. Alright, over here on the big track, it's definitely more at home. And ultimately I'm able to have some fun with it because it's definitely a car set up for party mode rather than serious mode. Definitely feels like maybe it's a bit under-tired in the rear. It's got the same issue mine had with the hop on the brakes. Alright, here we go. I like the power band a lot. It's linear and it doesn't shock you. Like, there's no point in the power band where it just surges to life and scares you. It did just try to break the tires for your... It scares me, okay? I can't get words out. It did just try to get the tires to break loose in 4th gear on a straightaway, so it's pretty intense. It's definitely intense enough that it breaks me mentally. The good news is the brakes are good. The brakes are real good. It's not over broke. Is that a term? Is that a term that's ever been used before? It doesn't have too much brakes that it's like wasteful, but it has enough brakes that you can get slowed down. Probably aided by the fact that I can't really get going that fast because I'm too scared. ESC is on, and if you turn it off, you will die. You'll be dead. You will no longer exist. See, when you can do that with ESC on and not even sport ESC, it's a pretty crazy car. But you'll note, I have made nearly a full lap now, and I spoke too soon. I have not put it in the wall. Necessarily. Crunch. Okay. I think I've seen what I need to see. I am going to say that actually, this might surprise you. I'm going to give it a 3 on the trackability. Mostly because it's scary, it's fun, but it actually has so little grip that you can't get going fast enough to mess up to the degree that you know, completely kill yourself. If you turn DSC off, well, the Darwin check's gonna catch up with you really, really fast. The brakes are very good. The steering's very direct, even though it doesn't have enough rear tire on it to keep stable. The steering is predictable. You know, it turns in nice, it handles pretty nice. You know, it's generally oversteery. Never really surprised me with understeer, and those are good things. So, yeah, I'm gonna go for a 3. Last but certainly not least is the Cars and Coffee test. It's a 5. I haven't done anything yet, you say? It's a 5. Fourth gear burnouts. Oh, I lost my mufflers. Oh man, this is absolutely the craziest one I've driven so far. I bet you I could launch it in 3rd gear. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, and light him up. Ooh, that was stylish. Yeah. I think that's definitive. I think that's very definitive. Well, there you go. That is Title Guy's entry. It's probably one of the most Vipers yet. That doesn't mean that it scored perfectly and everything, but once I started driving it, it certainly reminded me of what I think of when I think of a Viper. So you certainly nailed it there. Oh no. But maybe, just maybe, it's time for the Viper to grow up from that reputation, right? Maybe. Just a little. The Most Viper Color Award to Hitman. This color, I'm not sure many cars in the world could actually pull this off, but I legit could see a Viper rolling off the showroom floor with this color on it. It just screams Viper. The You Got Alpha on My Viper Award to Derek. I think that one speaks for itself. The Powers Police Award for this. Powers, please. Can we take a moment, though, to appreciate how much Viper styling Powers managed to get onto this car? Like, that's legitimately impressive. Next up, we have Dietrich's 2020 Viper. We're looking at this thing for the 10-year-old wow factor from within the automation headquarters, and holy cow, this is a home run. Like, even from in here, this thing knocks it out of the park. It has all of the right ingredients, and once you get close, even though there's some things we need to discuss later, the actual look of this car has an immense amount of presence. It's just got so much draw to it, and it's so pleasant to look at. Like, it does the best of both worlds. You know, it draws you in with the canards, the big vents, the scoops, the vents in the hood, the vents in the sides. There's so many different fixtures, and yet they all work together. It doesn't look like it's just an attention grab, but yet it does an amazing job of being an attention grab. And that is a 10 out of 10 in wow factor for me. This is if I would have let myself give an 11, I would probably give this one 11, just from every angle. Every angle of this car has something that's going to draw your attention. Very, very good. Even, I mean, this color, the color in automation is stunning. The automation, or the BeamNG representation of the color, is not nearly as stunning and does not represent it nearly as well. And I am judging them based on what they look like here. But even with that, it's really, really good. Yeah, I don't have anything else to say. I mean, look at the tailpipes, the triple tailpipes out the back. I feel like I am 10 years old, and I am very excited to see this. Alright, so, knocked it out of the park there, but like I said, we got some things we need to talk about for the next two categories, though. So it has wow factor, so it's stunning. Okay, that's great. But is it a Viper? That's where things get interesting. This car is very much so the same genre of car as a Viper, but there is not a lot of Viper lineage here. The front doesn't feature the crosshair grille at all. The hood scoop arrangement is actually pretty Viper-like. The side vents remind me of what you would expect to find in a Viper. And the rear taillight assembly with the blacked out center panel and then the taillight actual shape is vaguely Viper-like. The shape of the spoiler in the back, which by the way I'm super jealous of because I tried to get that spoiler to work so many times and I couldn't, is definitely on par. As is the overall treatment with the wing and the splitters, the canards and whatnot. Not necessarily a stock Viper, but gives me those ACR kind of vibes. So there's some good there, but overall, legacy-wise, I can't feel comfortable doing more than a 2 there because there's just not enough here to remind me that it's a Viper. Some roof bumps would have helped, and just some other little details like the third brake light that I've seen people do, or even as much as I don't really like them, the side pipes, although the triples in the back do remind me of the twin center exhaust of the GTS, so I guess that's passable. Yeah, overall still, I think a 2. Interestingly, for a car that is as extra as this one is, as kind of overdone in some ways, maybe a little showy, I think it's a pretty timeless design. It's actually really classy looking, which I think is very impressive. Let's actually go to this view. Yeah, you can just see everything flows together well, and I think that's part of what makes a design timeless, is a very cohesive and well put together design. Doesn't necessarily have to be clean or simple, but it needs to look like it's got some elegance to it, and it does, even though it's very much so over the top in its elements. There is so much going on in the back, there's so much going on in the front, but it still manages to pull it off. I actually just realized the rear gas door, which is a Viper element that I didn't see a lot of people do, which was surprising. So that actually kind of helps justify the 2, I think, on the Legacy. Timelessness, I think if it was a little sleeker and a little bit more elegant, I would give it a 5, but I'm still going to give it a 4, which is a very good score in this. I think this is one of the hardest categories, I think, to really impress me in, so pretty good there. So what is underneath of this monster? Obviously it's a monster, you can hear it. Cruising in 6th gear, 40 miles an hour, and it sounds like we're doing 100. Yeah, it's definitely a monster. but it's very Viper. It is a 8-liter V10. It is been modernized to dual red cam, 4 barrels per cylinder, very high compression, direct injection. So once again, we're going for the theme of modernized Viper V10. This one's actually even more akin to the other Viper V10s, like the previous ones. But once again, it revs much higher. It's got a modern top end. It's got, modern EFI on it. Well, not EFI. It's got direct injection. Modernized Viper V10. The interesting part is they've used that engine and made it all-wheel drive. That seems something to me. Now, this is my own personal judgment. I am not an engineer. I'm a failed mechanical engineering student, in fact, so take my take my words with a grain of salt if you choose. I don't think the Viper V10 is a good candidate for an all-wheel drive system. It just seems like it's already so huge, and now you've thrown dual red cam on it. Where's the space for this, There's going to be some huge space management issues. Boy, that was easy for me to say. That's where I'm going to actually draw back some on the plausibility. Other than that, it's a manual 6-speed, and the rest of it is pretty plausible. The underpinnings are it's an aluminum monocoque with a carbon fiber body. Very plausible. Previous Viper history there. That works pretty well. And other than that, not really too much to offer. Does have pushrod rear suspension, which is pretty out there. I mean, it's not out there, but it's pretty up there in the engineering department. But I think that's very Viper capable. Yeah, if not for the all-wheel drive system, it would be a 10. I'm only going to knock it down to a 9, though. So, how creative is it then? Well, we've spoken about this before. How creative is a 8-liter V10 when you're talking about Vipers? Ultimately, not that creative, and this one actually follows very much so the theme. It is an 8-liter V10. Does have dual red cam and the modern stuff on it, but it's 2020. That's probably to be expected, right? Then again, I think people would have said that of the 1996 Viper, probably. What do you mean it's overhead valve? But it's very wide. But I do think the creativity is only coming from the all-wheel drive system. Like I said, it's not super plausible, so it would be very creative. It would be a huge undertaking and something that ultimately would very much so change the perception of the Dodge Viper. Every other one has been a car that makes people scared. What if you kept the V10 formula, you kept the manual transmission, but you sent some power to the front wheels to make the thing livable and not as scary? So the creativity comes up a little bit there. Not huge amounts, but a little. This is a 10-point category, and it's going to score 4 points. There's a lot of room there for improvement, but I don't think we've seen huge scores throughout the whole competition so far here. And there's still plenty of room. I'm still looking for cars that have a fresh take or a unique take that still reads Viper. And the two categories do kind of cancel each other out. Well, not really cancel each other out, but they work together to form a total score. So I'm comfortable giving this car a 4 there. And I think it's doing what it's doing very well. Now we got to move into how that drivetrain design affects the car in its driving. So, Darwin check. I just said that this thing is all-wheel drive. Can this be our first all-wheel drive competitor to still pass the Darwin check? Well, let's give it the best chance we can. Let's get speed in 6th gear. Boy, it sounds mean. It can't have any mufflers on it. Alright. And we'll go... It's pretty short gear, so we'll go 2nd. It had a little instability. I think we're going to try again in 1st gear, though. Alright, should run 60 miles an hour. And 1st gear. Alright, first gear was too much. We overrode it. Not going to give it a 1 just yet. Oh, but now I am. Even rev dropping it in first gear. Yeah, it doesn't do too well there. So this is another one of those entries that they're trying to change the perception of what the Viper is, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. I integrated the handling course and the trackability to offset that. So it's not impossible to make a Viper that maybe drops that Darwinism or the Darwin check mentality of letting the car have the ability to let its driver do something stupid. This one, though, pretty darn safe. Oh, almost! Almost! It almost let it get away, but then it powers through. Is this... Yeah, it is a 6-speed manual. Must be very close ratio. We'll see how that affects it on the big track. But now, we need to go to the handling track. Oh, that's a 1, by the way. Definitely a 1. Just in the little bit I drove it, I had the feeling this is going to be our new handling track master. It seems extremely planted, very pointable. It's all-wheel drive, but it doesn't suffer too much from the all-wheel drive understeer. It does have it, and it is a car that it acts very heavy, but well, it actually does act pretty heavy. I'm having to give it quite a bit of wheel, but it does feel like the car that, say it was a loaner, I think I would feel comfortable bringing it out to a track like this and having fun with it. And with this short gearing, it really gets out of these turns well, even though I'm in 3rd gear. Actually go down to 2nd and get in the power range. Ooh. Alright, once you do that, it can get away from you. Very nice turn in there. It's got... I think that's the first time I've ever caught air on that turn. Oh, backed up a little too far there. But I'm actually just kind of curious. Oh yeah, it's lifting the wheels up off the ground around there. So that's a little scary. Ooh, buddy! This thing is... it's insanely fast. It's fast in power. I mean, it's 854 horsepower. All-wheel drive. To put that power down. This is much too small a course for this car. Giving it, you know, I'm giving it 110% now. I'm not. This is not track day driving style. And it's still a pretty pleasant experience. It's scary, but only in the fact that it's fast. Like, you can get in trouble so very fast. Because your entry speed is so high. But if you were to put it in 3rd gear and kind of, you know, have your normal track day kind of fun, I think it's there. It's there 100%. I would say easily right up there with my car. Go. Whoop. Good jump. Very good brakes for this course. They're getting a little warm, but they're not overheating. Handling seems like it's been tuned very well. This feels like a car that had some really good suspension tuning going into it. Maybe worked on it in BeamNG quite a bit. So I am going to award it a 5 on the handling track, which is a very difficult thing for a Viper to do. But now we gotta see how it does on the big track. Alright, this is another example where we need to see the launch, because the gearing, the all-wheel drive, and the power, oh buddy. Whew, it is fast. When you have to jump on the brakes for turn 1 from a standing start like that, oh buddy, you are in a race car, and this is a race car. This car needs the racing slicks on it. It is on the street tire, and it certainly has some handling characteristics that represent that. It's a little under-tired mid-turn. However, it is insanely planted. It is insanely stable. And most of all, it is insanely fast. There is no highway gear in this thing. I think that's about our top speed, and I actually could have almost done that flat. Boy, that's a scary turn to enter that fast. Oh, understeer in the middle because that was too fast. But it can get the power down out amazingly. A little bit of brake fade there. Cool down quickly. I think that's a product of the fact that this thing is so fast that it just cannot cope getting enough air to the brakes. It probably could have used a little brake cooling. The good news is it has enough brakes that even though they fade, it still has enough brakes to slow down. Ooh, easy. I think you can probably just tell. Oh, there they go. Alright, I still managed to get it slowed down, but the brakes did go there. I think you can probably tell that I'm having more fun on this track with this car than I have with any of the others. It is madness, and it is fun. It's fun in the fast way, though. It's not fun in the sliding around way. Yeah, even doing silly things really does not mess around very much. This is Porsche GT3 territory. I'm going to try it flat, just to see. And we get our top speed. 177, couldn't do it flat for sure. But it did do 177 miles an hour before we got to the turn, which is real fast. This thing does not have any highway gears. Alright. That's a 5. No debate about it. So we've determined Dietrich's Viper is stunning, but maybe lacks a little bit in Viper styling. It drives amazing, but maybe lacks a little bit in those Viper driving characteristics. Will it get Cars and Coffee shut down, though? That is the question that we need an answer to. I feel like it's going to struggle with it, much in the same way that all of the all-wheel drive cars tend to. This thing is mega fast, though, so we will see. Oh, actually, hold on. Let me grind the gears. Let me see something real quick. I feel like this has a lot of rear powertrain bias, which is probably why it handled so good. Let's see if we can do this here. Oh, I thought maybe you could actually do an all-wheel drive burnout standing on the brakes, but boy, I think I have to give it at least an extra point in this, just for the fact that in leaving Cars and Coffee, you can be in handcuffs before you even make it down the driveway of the parking lot. All right, here. I'm gonna test this theory. This is for one additional point. Getting an additional point in Cars and Coffee. Can this thing get me in handcuffs by the end of the driveway down there? So what I mean by that is, let's say that's a 35 mile an hour street. Anything over 20, which would be 65, basically you're gonna be in big trouble. So let's see. Yeah. pretty easily. All right, that is Dietrich's 2020 Viper entry. It is an amazing car. The scores definitely reflect it. It scores differently than some of the other cars, though. You know, some of them did very good in the Viper-like tendencies, and some of them have done very well in the, you know, driving prowess categories. This one's kind of all over the place with that, so it's going to be interesting to see how this all shakes out. But thank you for your entry. This is quite a build you have here. And that'll do it for today's look at the Viper 2020 concept entries. Thank you as always for watching, and I will see you next time. You thought I was gonna crash it, didn't you?